What's going on, everybody? It's Justin Gazub, and this is Living and Moving to Seattle, Washington. And in this video, we are going to break down the pros and cons of living right here in one of Seattle's all-time neighborhoods, where our office happens to be in Fremont. So if you're wondering, what's the deal with Fremont? Why is everybody talking about it? How comes it's such a destination for people to go on the weekend and nights out and all this stuff, and what's it like to live there? Well, this is the video for you, and you're gonna wanna stay all the way to the end, because I've got a couple of surprising statistics that kind of blew me away once I dug deep enough to find. You're definitely gonna wanna check that out. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit the like, subscribe, leave us a comment below. If you live in the area or thinking about moving to the area, we'd love to hear from you down in the comments. Just reach out to us. Don't forget to subscribe, and let's get into today's video. So today, before we jump into the pros and cons, I want to kind of outline a little bit about Fremont. We've got another video I've put together, a brief introduction on the Fremont neighborhood, where we walk around a little bit and show you around. Definitely worth checking out that video. But when it comes to Seattle neighborhoods, Fremont really stands apart, right? So we have, the downtown core of Seattle, Pioneer Square, SoDo, South Downtown, which is where the Stadium District is. And then you'll move into Pioneer Square, and then as you go through downtown, headed north, you come across Belltown, which is a lot of condos. But between Pioneer Square and Belltown, you're really in the urban center of Seattle. A lot of office buildings and a lot of glass and steel condominium buildings. Some great buildings down there with some fantastic views. You can even get into some of those buildings in the 700s or 800s, and then there are multi-million-dollar views there as well. But Fremont is just north of the cut. And you'll hear people talk about this as you navigate your way up through Seattle. North of the cut, there is a physical cut in the land that takes boat traffic from the Puget Sound into Lake Union. And Lake Union originally was supposed to be an area that would have a lot of basically canals going around to different parts of the Seattle area, as we were having a lot of a boom in timber, right, in industry. Okay, so north of the cut is where Fremont is. Just on the other side, south side of the cut, is where Westlake is, and if you follow the road down, you end up in South Lake Union. Westlake, west of Lake Union, South Lake, south of Lake Union, right into downtown. So now you kind of, hopefully we can bring up a map and make it really easy for you to see kind of where SoDo is, and the Stadium District, and downtown, and then Belltown, and then as you work your way up north of the cut into Fremont, you'll be able to see those neighborhoods and how that's situated on the cut. And so Fremont is an eclectic neighborhood. It had a very, very strong arts scene. It was further away from Seattle, further away from Capitol Hill. And so it had this, years ago, it had this draw of eclectic artists that kind of moved off the beaten path, moved out of Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill had a similar vibe, but much more urban, and Fremont was a lot less dense. And so what you'll see are some interesting things in Fremont. Like Fremont has the Fremont Troll, which is like an 18-foot tall statue of a troll clutching a Volkswagen Beetle underneath the Aurora Bridge. And so that's one feature. There's also a old statue, Cold War era statue of, I believe it's Lenin, right on the thoroughfare. It used to be actually shown, I believe, in the Czech Republic, and somebody, a citizen, brought it home, and it's on private property. So there's this statue of Lenin right in the middle of town. There's also a Cold War era missile that's like 53 feet tall, strapped on the side of a building, and it's the Fremont rocket. Pretty wild to see. Right now, it's, as we're making this video, it's almost Thanksgiving, which means it's coming into Christmas, and that rocket is decorated like a Christmas tree, right? So Fremont is kind of known they named themselves, they declared it themselves as the center of the universe. And there's a sign that says center of the universe. And then on that sign, it has all those distances off to the different places around the globe. So I tell you all that because it is a vibe. Like, it is a different neighborhood. It's small, it's compact. You've got good access to the water on the cut, and there's a big park right there. People will go down to Gasworks Park, which technically is in Wallingford, but most people will say, hey, we're going to Gasworks in Fremont. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Super, super close to Fremont, within a mile. It's right there, Gasworks, right on the north end of Lake Union, and really, really cool park, right? So with parks and all these kind of strange statues, these bars and restaurants and shops and breweries, it really, really is kind of a destination. If you're just touring Seattle and you're going to go to Fremont on tour, you might check out Theo Chocolate that's down there. You might go check out some of those statues and get your picture taken with the troll. If you live in the area, if you live in Seattle, let's say you live in Ballard or Capitol Hill, you don't live in Fremont, you're going to go to Fremont for the restaurants. You're going to go to Fremont for the High Dive, which is a venue, music venue. You're going to go to Fremont to have a picnic on the cut. You're going to go to Fremont Brewing. You're going to go to Fremont because you're on the Burt Gilman Trail, right? So it just has a lot of stuff going on, kind of in the same way that Capitol Hill might, but just a little less dense than Capitol Hill. So it really is kind of an interesting neighborhood in that regard. It's a small land mass. There's only about 15,000 people or so that live in Fremont proper, and it's a really, really cool neighborhood. So all that said, now you got this backdrop, this idea of what Fremont is, what it can be, and there's some, like I say, there's some great restaurants, bars, and breweries right there in Fremont. So now I want to get into the pros and cons. So we're going to start off with the pros. We're going to hit this list and run it down, and then we'll get to the cons. And like I said, there's a couple of interesting statistics that I think you're going to want to stick around for. They'll let you, bring up at the end of the video. So let's get into these pros. Okay, so the pros: easy to walk. Fremont is, like I said, we're down by the cut. So the cut is kind of at sea level because they control the level of the water with the Ballard locks. But from Fremont, it kind of goes uphill as you go north. But east to west is really, really flat, and that's how the town's really laid out. So if you were, over on Stone Avenue by Brooks, or in the Brooks store or Fremont Brewing, you could easily walk through town, through the other shops and restaurants. A lot of these restaurants service the office buildings in the area, but there's a lot of other bars and restaurants. But it's really, really easy to walk, and so you can get to and from. It's not a very big neighborhood, and the walkability, really, if you're coming into town, you're going to want to find a decent place to park and then walk it. You're not going to really want to drive from one end of Fremont to the other. You probably could do it and still find decent parking during the day, but you might want to add in some time to circle around and find parking. So Fremont also has really, really good traffic. Its location north of downtown Seattle, north of Westlake, north of South Lake Union, and the Fremont Bridge and Highway 99 that come down and make it really, really easy to get into the downtown corridor in South Lake Union, right? So you can just take the Fremont Bridge, wind down Westlake Avenue, and then you're in that Westlake section of town. Or if you need to go a little further into downtown, you'd be better suited to circle up the hill a little bit, get on 99, and then book it down through into downtown. And even 99, if you live in Fremont or Ballard or even Queen Anne, right, you're going to take 99 down to the airport. Most likely not going to go all the way to I-5 to make your way down to SeaTac. So, but really, really convenient and really, really easy. Again, I've talked about it in all kinds of videos. North to south is pretty stinking easy. Fremont also makes it fairly easy to get over to UW east to west. But that north to south corridor where most people are commuting into downtown Seattle, into Westlake, really, really easy. Also, when it comes to pros, and I mentioned it when we were kind of outlining the neighborhood, Green Lake, Fremont has a ton of parks. So like I mentioned before, Gasworks Park is really in Wallingford, but it's so close to Fremont that you might not know the difference, and we'll claim it as being a benefit of living in Fremont because it really is just right there. And from Gasworks, you have the Burt Gilman Trail that runs along the cut through Fremont. A lot of people run, jog, and even commute and cycle on the Burt Gilman. During the summer months, you'll just see tons of people using the Burt Gilman Trail, and that's a really, really long trail that goes from Ballard all the way out into Redmond, and so it's quite a distance that you can get on the Burt Gilman. But that section that's right there in Fremont is really, really pretty great, really, really convenient and easy, and connects, if you're down there on a bicycle, you can connect a lot of different bars if you want to go bar hopping or brewery hopping or whatever you're doing. Super, super nice. On the cut, they have the Fremont Canal Park, and that's also right next to that Burt Gilman Trail. It's a little bit further north into Fremont. But one of the reasons I wanted to point this out is that because of that park and it's right on the cut, you've got all this like grass that works its way down to the cut. And you'll see a lot of people in spring and summer will go down there and picnic on that thoroughfare right there with people jogging and riding bicycles behind them. It's quite a bit of fun to see people down there taking an afternoon and enjoying the good weather and having that access to that water right there. Makes it a really, really kind of nice feature for Fremont to have that much access and that much parks right there. Another pro of Fremont, if you're living there and you're working there, there's Google, Adobe, Salesforce, Tableau is all right there. Those are kind of the big major companies. Actually, we share some building space with the geocaching company. Geocaching. Columbia Sportswear is down here. There's a ton of companies right here that have office buildings that all right here in Fremont. So if you live in the area, you can walk to work, really, really convenient, really easy to bicycle. Again, it does kind of slope down the hill. So, if you want to get half some fitness in, you can coast your bike down the hill to your office building and then take the bus or whatever you need back up the hill, or ride your bike up the hill, whatever suits you. But it is really, really convenient and really easy in that regard. So when we think about the pros of the neighborhood, walkability, shops and restaurants, great parks and access to the outdoors, easy commute if you need to take transit north and south, and even east to west is fairly easy here from Fremont. It really does make it convenient and easy. And because, it has an urban appeal, but there's no high rises. All the buildings are a little bit, 7 stories or under, even the apartment buildings. And then you've got a lot of companies that have made this part of their campus with, Google, Adobe, and like I said, Salesforce, Tableau. And there's dozens of others that are here as well. But it really just has this kind of self-contained feel, really, really convenient and easy to get around. And overall, just a really well put together neighborhood, except for these cons. So let's get into the cons, because the first thing I think about with the cons is that if you look at the map and you see how, the Fremont Bridge crosses, and then you've got 39th Avenue that turns into Leary Way and heads over into Ballard. 39th is a busy road, and it cuts right into one of the main corridors of where all the shops and restaurants are. So if you find yourself that you're going like to Roxy's Diner, or you're going to Aslan Brewing, or you're, going to the Neon Ballroom or whatever, I don't know if they're still doing that there or if they're doing something different, or if you're going to any of the little plant shops or the Thai food place or the coffee shop, right? It's all right there on 39th. But 39th is a busy road. There's a lot of traffic right there. And right there in front of the Lenin statue, right? And there's just a ton of traffic right there as people are coming from, the docks in Lake Union and, in the industry that's there on the lake, and meandering out to the warehouses over in Ballard. Plus you have you know, all the trucks that are delivering groceries and beer and everything else. And that's also the main road to get in and out of Fremont, and that's where all the shops and restaurants are. So it can be very busy. You're waiting to cross the street a lot. If you're driving through, there are just rogue people and dogs that have decided to cross that street without using a crosswalk, which is dangerous. There's cyclists that are driving and riding through the streets and sidewalks that aren't paying attention to traffic signals. So there is a fair bit of congestion right there in that section. It pays to be alert and be able to navigate that traffic and try your best to obey all the traffic laws and let people get through and do all that sort of stuff. But you'll have trucks parked on the sides of the roads and buses trying to get through. And so to me, one of the major cons of Fremont is that you have this great place to go out to all these shops and restaurants, but you're just inundated with this thoroughfare of traffic. Can you deal with it? I bet you can. Is it obnoxious? I think so. With that said, parking is also another con. There's tons of people parked on the street. Fremont, unlike Ballard, but similar to Capitol Hill, they have zone parking. A lot of Seattle has zone parking, and that's where you get a permit from the city of Seattle that allows you to park on the street after hours. Now, a lot of the places you'll have 2-hour parking, or there are a few pay for lots. One of the best locations in Fremont is a funeral home, and they have a beautiful giant parking lot that no one is ever in because it's for the funeral home. I just think that's pretty funny. They should probably put up signs and charge people to park there when they're not doing something. That'd probably free up a lot of parking. But anyway, so parking, you know, when you find a good parking spot, because Fremont is so walkable, just think about keeping that spot all day and walking around, right? You're not going to want to drive around too much in Fremont and try to look for different parking spots as you go from one end to the other. Like I said, there are those pay-for spots that you can get, you know, pay for a couple hours and do that, you know. But parking can be kind of obnoxious, especially if you're just trying to pop into one of the coffee shops. I think it said 39th and I meant 36th. But, you know, right there at that corridor, it can be pretty hectic. In the side streets, you know, there's a lot of townhouses, and those people, they don't have their own driveways, so they have street parking, so it is more difficult to park in the street as well. So it's one of those things where, you know, give yourself a little bit of extra time if you plan on being on time to find a parking spot, or just go to one of the pay-for spots so that you have a decent spot. And then also know that if for whatever reason you're not able to move your car at night, you are in a zoned parking area. Those neighborhoods are zoned parking, so you do run the risk of getting towed or getting a ticket, right? So that could be a big con for you. So let's talk about crime. Now, crime in Fremont. You know, Fremont gets a really good rating as far as livability, and, you know, if you look at some of those websites like niche.com, I mean, they're giving it like an A+ to live in, but they're giving it poor ratings for crime. And my brother, he happens to live in Fremont, and he happens to drive a Toyota Highlander that has, it's all stock, but it's got decent ground clearance for, you know, go up to the mountains or whatever. And he, right off, he has zone parking, he's parked in the street, and somebody cut off his catalytic converter, which is part of your exhaust system that, you know, helps with whatever. We don't need to get into the mechanics of that, but they're valuable because they're full of platinum. So that got stolen, right? So just overnight, like, you didn't hear a thing, didn't know, none of the neighbors saw anything. It is a common occurrence. We do see, you know, this types of crime. With everybody getting deliveries from Amazon, we see a lot of package theft, right? It does happen. I've seen reports of assaults, but you know, compared to the national average, I can't tell if people are just reporting more or if there is more stuff going on there. So something to be cognizant of, but it does come across as one of those neighborhoods that you know, has good access to schools, has good access to downtown, and overall has a nice way of life there for living in town. So just something to consider, something to think about. Are you going to own a car? Are you going to only drive it to the mountains on the weekends? You know, what's that look like for you? You're going to be able to park that car in your house, in your driveway, or is it going to be on the street? You know, we do see, you know, a lot of times too, people will leave valuables in their car. Obviously, it's something you don't want to do in case it gets broken into. My experience is, you know, living in Ballard and that area, you know, I've left my car doors unlocked and all kinds of stuff in the car and haven't had a problem. So it's just not on purpose. I just forget to lock the car, and then that's what happens, right? I don't necessarily trust the button that does the auto lock, right? So, but just be aware of that sort of thing. And with, you know, the homelessness crisis, one of the things that is actually a benefit, you know, those zone parking permits you got to pay for, but because it's zone parking, we don't see a lot of, you know, RVs or vans or homelessness, you know, people living in their vehicles in Fremont. You just don't see it as much. But there is still a homeless population, you know, in, you know, beautiful downtown Fremont there. You see people in the Burt Gilman. It's not so much, you know, it's not as prevalent as it once was, but it still is there. So you do see trash in the streets and stuff like this. You'll come across it and, you know, you'll see it. So just be aware of that. Number 5, con. Hopefully I'm sticking with my numbers right and we're actually on number 5. So here's the deal. Fremont, there's a lot of townhouses, apartment buildings, and condos in Fremont. They're mostly small buildings, and the townhouses, you know, 3-4 stories kind of thing. But it is a densely populated. There's lots of townhouses in those areas. And when I show houses in the area, one of the things that comes up time and again is that it feels like your neighbors are looking right into your patio, right into your backyard area. So there can feel like there's a lot less privacy when living in some of those areas in Fremont. Now, depending on where you are in Fremont, how far up the hill you are, there's more houses. If you get closer east to Wallingford, there's more houses. But if you're just above like 36th and 39th on like Finney or Dayton or these roads that run north to south, that's kind of where you'll see the most density and the most townhouses, and you'll kind of feel, you know, I'll leave it to you. Come out, take a tour, let's go look, but see if you feel like, hey, it's a good amount of privacy, it's what you're looking for, or if it's not. Feedback I've gotten in the past is that it kind of feels like it's not as private as some people would like. So that can be a big con for folks. And I told you at the end that these statistics I wanted to share with you. I think these two things go hand in hand. So this is number 6. And the thing that kind of struck me that I didn't realize is that, we'll get the number right, 68% of people living in Fremont are renters. To me, that's exorbitantly high. But what that tells us is that Fremont's a great place to live for a while, and then people move on, right? I feel like that about Capitol Hill. You know, some areas closer in town Capitol Hill where it's a lot more dense, is you live there 5-7 years and then you move further out, get a little more privacy as your lifestyle changes. So that means that only like 32% of residents in Fremont own the home that they live in. So I don't know if people buy in Fremont and then they decide to keep their rental. We always advise like, hey, if you can keep it, it's a good way to build wealth. You want to look at those numbers and do that math and see if it makes sense to you. If you want to be a landlord, build wealth through real estate, right? These are conversations that we want to have and see if we can get you set up for success. But only 68% of people, or 68% of people rent in that neighborhood. So I hope you guys find that stuff interesting. We're helping people make the move to Seattle, the Seattle Metro, Puget Sound all the time. Reach out to us, give us a call, shoot me a text, whatever you got to do to get in touch. If you don't reach out, we can't help you. We love putting these videos together for you, and I love hearing from you in the comments. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, drop me a comment, reach out, say hello, and we'll see you in the next video. Talk to you.